by David.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm just going to read the land acknowledgement for the greater Toronto area. And then after that, I will talk about something that's happening in the Caribbean within our own history or modern history, depending on how you look at it. So I'll go ahead and read the land acknowledgement for Southern Ontario here. The City of Toronto acknowledges that we are on traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Hanisinahi, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples. The city also acknowledges that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with the multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. The City of Toronto has been acknowledging the traditional treaties since March 2014. As to where we're from, today I'll talk about one country in particular in the Caribbean. The Caribbean region was colonialized by European nations in the 17th and 18th century using enslaved African labor mainly. They introduced a plantation economy to the region, mainly based on sugar, but also rum, cotton, coffee, and cocoa. Most Caribbean countries were under colonial rule even after the abolition of slavery. However, it must be noted that Haiti, a former French colony, was the first Caribbean nation to gain independence from a European power in 1803. Even before the French abolition of slavery, this was what was known as the longest, most successful rebellion in the Western Hemisphere from 1791 to 1803. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, we will look at our Caribbean Canadian identity. Can someone read this for us, please? Any volunteers?
I can go. Caribbean Canadian identity, people who are native to or descending from Caribbean nations, regions, territories, including their variations by ancestry, ethnicity, and currently reside in Canada and self-identify as Caribbean Canadian. We represent, serve, and belong in the Caribbean Canadian community. Be deliberate in supporting this sole shared identity in our space. We do not promote racism or colonialism, so unscientific labels such as Black, brown, or white are not tolerated. Further, hate, political, and religious debates are not tolerated.
Thank you.
No problem.
Members and participant poll question. So please take a few minutes. There'll be a poll that comes up on your screen. If you could just take a few minutes to answer that, that would be great.
Has it come up on the screen?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you.
Has everyone completed the poll?
Yes, it looks like it.
Okay, perfect. Did you know? Did you know that race is a social construct and the Ontario Human Rights Commission describes people as racialized group instead of the more outdated and inaccurate terms of racial minority, visible minority, person of color, or non-white? Who knew that? Show of hands, who knew that? Why are we mentioning this? We want to ensure that we are inclusive to our community, not focus on skin color, but our cultural commonalities. Work toward bringing people from the Caribbean together. Is everyone aware that there are 43 countries in the Caribbean? Show of hands if you knew this. Does anyone see any country or countries that they didn't know were a part of the Caribbean?
Nicaragua.
Anyone else? So our main historical Caribbean ancestries are African, Asian, European, Indigenous, South American, and South Asian. Did you know this? Show of hands. This is what makes us unique. There are 6 official languages in the Caribbean. They are Creole, Dutch, English, French, Papiamento, and Spanish. Show of hands, who knew this? So we'll move into the state of our community and our purpose. The Caribbean Canadian community is suffering an identity crisis by Camille Kerr. This is how it shows up: socially, economically, politically, and culturally. Anyone care to share if they agree or disagree with this statement?
I agree.
Anyone disagree? So it's necessary to have a crisis to have a movement. For a social movement, you must identify the problem. We are responding to this crisis. We are tackling this crisis.
So sorry to interrupt you, Lisa. Just want to make a quick reminder that we should all have our cameras on, as we do want everyone's lovely faces to be seen tonight as we are sharing with our community. And just a reminder that if you don't have your camera on, you run the risk of being not allowed in the meeting. Okay.
Thank you for that reminder, Danielle. We are tackling it by forging a collective perspective, direction, and working unity by Camille Kerr. This is our plan. This is our strategy. This is how we are responding to our Caribbean Canadian identity crisis. Our vision: a thriving Caribbean Canadian community. We will know our movement was successful when we see the vision become reality. We are taking the right steps. What does a thriving Caribbean Canadian community look like to you? Would anyone care to share?
For me, if you don't mind, I'll go first. Okay, for me, I would love to see when I fill out, what do you call it, the census. I would love to see it has a Caribbean Canadian identity checkmark. I would love to see that because I haven't seen that.
Anyone else care to share? You can just unmute.
I'd like to see the kids have a strong sense of Caribbean identity. Because it's so easy to get lost in what they see on TV or what they hear on the radio or the music they're listening to. But do they really know where they're descending from? So that's when I know that we're on the way to becoming a thriving community, when we have the future generation, like the culture is preserved in the future generation.
Thanks for sharing.
I'd like to share.
Sure, go ahead, Danielle.
Us utilizing Caribbean Canadian businesses and services, like on the regular, just us circulating that within our Caribbean Canadian community, I feel is another sign of a thriving community.
Yes, I agree with that.
So as we're moving on through our meetup tonight, as you see on your screen here, this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we've tweaked it for our organization just to show how these needs also support our social movement. So if you're not familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these, as you see on the screen, are the different levels of what it means to feel a part of a community. And these three top tiers, self-actualization, needs, and belongingness, are the three major parts of our organization that we look at when it comes to building our thriving Caribbean Canadian community. So, of course, everyone achieving their full potential, including their creative activities, esteem, being prestige, and feelings of accomplishment, belongingness and love in the sense of intimate relationships and friends that we are building here as we network and, we get more membership and we have people sign up and join our meetings and our events and learn more and more about the Caribbean Canadian community.
Thank you, Danielle. So our mission is connect and enable Caribbean Canadians. The mandate is improving quality of life for the Caribbean Canadian community. And then we have our beliefs. So let's take a closer look at our beliefs. Psychologically, members would buy into what these 12 fundamental beliefs are. So we have progress, forward, Caribbean Canadian identity, growth mindset, knowledge, inclusion, friendship, sense of belonging, free will, freedom, communication, forgiveness, reconciliation, healing, presence, participation, engagement, independence, self-reliance, autonomy, reinvent, redefine, renovate, accountability, responsibility. So members already have the basics covered. All our programs will help you get there. All our programs have these 12 principles. We are definitely not labels. We are all about inclusion. Any questions or comments on this?
I have a comment, Lisa.
Sure.
I'll just say that for me, it's exciting because we actually have a roadmap where there was none before.
Exactly.
Not that we have all the answers and not that we're going to get it right. We're not perfect, but the fact that there are like-minded people out there that actually do care about the culture, they do care about where it's going, and they care about connecting with other people and all of that. Like, that to me excites me, and it kind of puts everybody focused on one path, as opposed to everybody doing their own thing, which is what we've been doing for the longest, right? Everybody's kind of doing their own thing, starting from ground zero every time and not really getting anywhere. So I'm optimistic. I'm motivated. I'm encouraged by this plan.
Awesome. So next, did you know? Can I have somebody read this for us, please?
I'll read.
Sure. Thanks, Danielle.
Cultural identity is an important contributor to people's well-being. Identifying with a particular culture gives people feelings of belonging and security. It also provides people with access to social networks, which provide support and shared values and aspirations. These can help break down barriers and build a sense of trust between people, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as social capital.
So again, the Caribbean Canadian community is suffering an identity crisis by Camille Kerr. Reclaiming and reinventing the Caribbean Canadian identity. So this is our social movement that requires leadership, buy-in, and consensus. We are starting from scratch because we don't have CCC identity. We are creating a template for our community. We are here with a master plan, accomplished and united. Reclaiming and reinventing requires everyone's participation. This is going to take time, but over time and with continuous conversations and communications, discussions over generations, it can be done. How we are advancing it forward. We are fostering a collective sense of positive self-esteem, community, and belonging by Camille Kerr. Our social movement. Reclaiming and rebuilding a Caribbean Canadian culture identity, changing divisive colonial language. How do we get there? Stop using divisive terms such as Black, brown, white, etc. Teach your kids about Caribbean Canadian culture. Joining the Sunday meetups. Becoming a member. And showing leadership within our community. Now, this brings us to the topic of leadership. What is leadership? According to Wikipedia, leadership is both a research area, a practical skill encompassing the ability of an individual, group, or organization to lead, influence, or guide other individuals, teams, or entire organizations. What is one quality or word that comes to mind when you hear leadership? Please type your response in the chat. Qualities of leadership include support, motivation, goals, success, contribution, teamwork, drive, vision, resilience, confidence, transparency, focus, accountability, empathy, honesty, positivity, and creativity. Danielle, can you please check the chat and let me know if there are any other words that are not on this list that may have been mentioned?
We've got passion, perseverance, inspiration, trust, and empathy. I know we said empathy already, but looks like a lot of us agree with that one.
Another good one is emotional intelligence.
Oh, we've got strength as well. Servitude. Okay.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. So now I'm going to play a 5-minute video clip titled "Leadership Has Nothing to Do with Rank."
Leadership has nothing to do with rank, right? I know many people who sit at the highest levels of organizations who are not leaders. We do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we would never choose to follow them. And yet I know many people with no formal rank and no formal authority who've made the choice to look after the person to the left of them and made the choice to look after the person to the right of them, and we would follow them anywhere. We call you leader, not because you're at the top. We call you leader because you went first, because you took the risk to head towards the danger. You took the risk to express uncertainty. You took the risk to ask for help. That's why you earn the rank of leader, because you literally led by the behavior. You led by example. When this person says, my leader's not taking care of our team, I get that. The question is, who's taking care of the team? You can be the leader you wish you had. It does not require rank or authority to pick up the phone and say, how are you? And it can come from anywhere inside the organization where one person may take responsibility to take care of the mental health of everybody. Congratulations, you are a leader. What's also fundamental is that whoever that person is must remember to act with others. In other words, don't just make this unilateral decision that I'm going to just go take care of everybody because my leader is ineffective, blah, 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 blah. One, talk to colleagues and say, hey, I think what I need to do, I think our team is struggling. I think I'm going to reach out to everybody. Make sure someone knows what you're doing. Leadership is a team sport because things will go wrong. Things will get difficult. Some people may not appreciate it. You got to have somebody that you can call up and be like, what do I do? Also, don't assume the leader is ineffective. Use the same empathy that we expect down the chain of command, up the chain of command. Maybe my leader is stuck. Maybe my leader is confused. Maybe my leader is stressed out of their mind. Maybe my leader is dealing with trauma. We have no idea what's going on in that person's private life. Maybe my leader's got marital issues or struggling with their kids. Like, we don't know. And so sometimes part of that check-in is to call our boss and, hey, boss, you were really hard on us on the Zoom call the other day. I just wanted to see, are you okay? And giving a leader a safe space might be everything. And also, don't expect that you're going to get the reaction you want immediately. Some people are reactors. Some people need time to think and to process before they react. So we can't expect people to react the way we would react. And so if somebody, now let's take the other scenario, which is there actually is a leader who is completely ineffective. And this is why I talk about telling people what you're doing. I'm going to chicken on everybody because you could ruffle the feathers of a big ego, right? You could ruffle the feathers of someone who's insecure. And so it could come down on you. This is the risk of leadership. Remember, leadership comes with risk, which is if you're willing to stick your neck out, even if it's to take care of your folks, it can sometimes backfire and hurt. The question is it worth it? And for most people who want to be a leader, that risk is worth it. This is why we so admire leaders who put their careers on the line to do the right thing, because they were willing to risk it. And so you could risk getting in trouble. You could risk getting yelled at. You could risk being told, stop doing my job. All true. And if you're alone in that, you're going to have to bear that stress. If some other people know what you're doing, you'll find comfort and security and confidence just knowing that there are other people who have your back as well. So make sure you got a leadership buddy. Leadership is a team sport. You would never go scuba diving by yourself. It's too dangerous. Don't try and be a leader by yourself. Too dangerous, too difficult. And like I said, sometimes leading up is what's necessary. We can actually help our leaders be better leaders because we're going to demonstrate the behavior. We're going to express empathy. We're going to see how they are. We're going to support them. Hey, boss, I got your back, whatever you need. I'm here. If you want to vent, I'm here. And give them a safe space also. It goes up and down.
So before we move on with the discussion questions, would anyone like to share what stood out for them or resonated with them from the video?
I think the part where he talked about not expecting other people to like react or do something the same way that you do it yourself.
Yes.
That stood out for me.
Nice. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Leadership is a team sport.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah, what stood out for me is help your leader to be a better leader. Because a lot of times, and from my perspective, when someone is leading and we are following, we are quick to criticize that leader, not knowing that we can help them to lead as well.
Great point. Rixella, I see you have your mic open.
Yes, what stood out for me is when you said giving the leader a safe space. You know, sometimes we feel that because that person is a leader, they have it all, they know it all, and they don't need that kind of attention. We just feel that, okay, you're the leader and you got it. But sometimes leaders struggle as well. So that is what
Exactly.
stood out for me. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I'll just add that leadership has nothing to do with rank, right? And to be a leader, sometimes you have to take risks. So I like that.
Yes, I like that too. Anyone else? Well, thanks for sharing. Now we can move into our discussion questions. The first question, how can we foster or demonstrate leadership in the Caribbean Canadian community? So anyone can share, you can just unmute.
Oh, hold on. Am I unmuted?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Telling people about our experiences as a Caribbean or a Canadian Caribbean.
Yes.
Trying to.
I think even joining meetings like these, joining a group like this, we're starting to build trust amongst ourselves and help to lead the generations that are coming up, as well as others that are in the community, so that we can become stronger.
Definitely.
I also think unity and collaboration between all generations instead of just focusing on one generation is a really great way to also find the people within this community who are the great leaders who we can follow.
Thank you.
Oh, and I also think, sorry, I was just saying, I also think sharing your experiences and your journey
Yes,
is also important.
for sure. Thank you.
I will also say that don't be afraid to stand up and represent who you are. For example, when it comes to the Caribbean Canadian community, when it comes to using the Black and brown, sometimes it could be very tough for us, especially when we're in certain group of people. And no need to really go back and forth in terms of to try to fit in, right? We already know that labels, from my perspective anyways, labels is not a good thing in the long term. So, not to be afraid, take risk, right?
Yes.
Not to be afraid to stand up for your identity or show people your identity or talk about it, actually.
Good point. Thanks for sharing. Rexilla, did you want to share something else?
Yes, I think we can also encourage others to be true to themselves, because sometimes you find some people identify themselves as Caribbean Canadian only when they're in that group, but when they're in other groups, like at work or other places, they tend to pull back and divorce themselves from who they really are. So by encouraging them to be true to yourself and stick to, your culture.
Yes, that's a very good point.
Thank you.
So the second question is, how can we use our leadership skills to advance or push the Caribbean Canadian identity social movement?
I think I could go. I think that one of the ways that we can use our leadership is to continue to have these meetings and meetups, sharing new information and historical information about our culture with each other and with others in our community, so that we can, broaden that knowledge and broaden that love for what it is to be Caribbean and Caribbean Canadian. I see
Yes, thanks,
David.
Danielle.
Yeah, no problem. I see David has his hand up.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. This question is the same as the last one for me because I guess I would answer them both the same. In that yeah, I like all the suggestions of how we can you know, for loss of better words, advertise about ourselves. But for me, I would say, what are we really proud of? And I know some Caribbean countries won medals in the last Olympics that just finished today. And people were proud of their country, or maybe just proud of the Caribbean area that won the medal or did well. You know, top 10 in the whole world, right? So, and I think everyone is rightfully proud of our food in the Caribbean. So that gives you an idea of what you're proud of. But I think we have so much more to offer. That's external. But what about redemptively? I mean, like I said earlier, I joined for myself. And what I meant by that is that I'm proud to be Caribbean. And from the inside, or no one's in the room, I'm still proud to be Caribbean. That comes from watching, you know, kind of a modern history of how we grow as a people. We could go all the way back to colonial times and how the first settlers in North America, where they came from and their short history. And we look at our history, long history and short history of who actually traveled to European to better theirself and their family, and who was born here. Like some of us are born in Canada, but they know who set them in place, who set them up, whether it's in business or just in paying the travel to get to somewhere in North America or somewhere in Western Europe. So I think one of the words I heard earlier was emotional education. And these kind of things I think are so important because we demonstrate it all the time. I say we, I don't know all the Caribbean people in the world, but I know the ones that I grew up watching, admiring, respecting, and that I'm proud of. And they had that communication skill and that mannerism. And that's what I'm proud of. So if we can distribute that and, make that vibrant and grow that, then I think other people will be proud to be Caribbean and they'll know what they're proud of. Something other than athletics, food, maybe even fashion, sunshine, our other exports that we have, we can grow those things and keep them. Is the word vibrant? We used a word earlier.
Yes.
And described it. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, David. Any last comments or to add to what David said?
I just wanted to share something posted in the chat.
Okay.
That we can share this live stream. Another way to encourage our community to be involved is to share today's live stream.
Yes.
The link is in the chat, so everyone feel free to go into the chat at some point during our meeting tonight and share this live stream.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. Just wanted to add to that, Lisa, really quickly. You don't have to go back, it's okay, but really quickly. I think the goal here is to make what we're doing right now, the 13 of us, because I know Danielle is logged in twice, so there's 13 of us on the call. What we're doing right now, we have to make this fashionable, as David would say. We have to make this a popular thing that we do in our community, which is we discuss what the issues are. We bring like-minded people together, leadership-minded people who actually want to lead this new way of doing things in our community for the betterment of ourselves today, but more importantly, for future generations. So I think that is, for me, one of the key things we can do to push this movement forward is to continue to gather like-minded leadership leadership-minded people to be a part of this movement. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Thanks so much for sharing, Camille. So here's a quote about leadership that I'd like to share. Good leadership isn't about advancing yourself. It is about advancing your team, by John C. Maxwell. It is important for us to remember that when we work as a team, anything is possible. Using our leadership skills as a collective is very important when trying to push and advance this Caribbean Canadian identity social movement. Always remember, leadership is an action, not a position. So let's take action now. At this time, we'll move into our 5-minute deep breathing meditation exercise. So please make yourself comfortable and we'll get started.